In the apocalyptic world, everyone awakened their supernatural abilities. Some could control water, while others could spew fire, and my supernatural ability was taking away the abilities of those named John. Yes, I could only take away the abilities of people named John. 3 years had passed, and not only had I not met a single person named John, but I was also oppressed and bullied because my ability seemed so useless. Later, when I was scavenging for garbage in the slums, I reunited with my best friend who was begging for food. We hugged each other and wept bitterly. My best friend wailed, "Why are other people's abilities so awesome, while I can only change others' names to John?" I was stunned. "What did you say?" After the apocalypse began, I made a living by scavenging for garbage in the slums. I endured the wind and rain every day, sometimes going hungry and sometimes having enough to eat, and I was robbed every now and then. I watched as the skinny man snatched a piece of bread that I had just found. My feet felt as if they were filled with lead and I couldn't move. This was his supernatural ability. The man kicked me to the ground and laughed heartily. There's actually still a useless person without supernatural abilities in this day and age. How have you managed to survive until now? The words I wanted to retort were on the tip of my tongue, but I swallowed them back. I quickly got up and smiled obsequiously. "Big brother, your ability is really amazing. What should I call you? I will definitely save the good things I find for you in the future. You're sensible. In the future, send the good things to the back of the pharmacy. Listen up. My name is John." I widened my eyes in shock. John, Johnny. After that damn Johnny left, I couldn't help but burst into tears. After the apocalypse began, plants and animals mutated, and the surviving humans all awakened their supernatural abilities. Since then, the social classes were rearranged according to the strength of the supernatural abilities. Some people had extremely powerful abilities, such as controlling water and fire, while others had ordinary abilities like duplication and telekinesis. My ability was taking away the abilities of those named John. Yes, I could only take away the abilities of people named John. 3 years had passed, and I hadn't met a single person named John. The guy just now was the closest I had ever been to success. But damn it, why was his name Johnny? What use was my useless ability in this apocalyptic world? Before the apocalypse, I was at least a white-collar worker in a big city. Now, anyone could step on me. I didn't know how long I could still survive in this world where the strong prey on the weak. I cursed and was about to return to that drafty garbage station. Just as I stepped out of the alley, I saw that there was a hole in the bag someone was carrying, and a pack of compressed biscuits fell out of it. My eyes lit up, and I pounced on it. Just as I touched the biscuits, someone suddenly rushed over and grabbed the other end. Neither of us would let go. The other person suddenly let out a howl. "Please have mercy on me. I haven't eaten for 5 days. I'm going to starve to death." That voice, I took a closer look, and the disheveled, emaciated, and stinky person in front of me was none other than my missing best friend, Anna. When she saw me, she also widened her eyes. "Jill." We immediately hugged each other and wept bitterly. "Where have you been? I couldn't find any news about you anywhere. I was captured by a group of people for research. They thought my ability was useless, so they threw me out." Anna told me about her experiences over the past few years while eating the compressed biscuits. It turned out that not long after the apocalypse began, some institutions started researching supernatural abilities and randomly abducted some people, but Anna's ability was so useless that they thought it had no research value, so they let her go. I didn't quite believe this. Could her ability be more useless than mine? I had managed to survive until now, and I hadn't seen anyone whose ability was more useless than mine. I comforted her sincerely. "Don't say that. No matter how useless your ability is, it can't be more useless than mine." She retorted firmly, "That's impossible. Trust me, no, my ability is really useless." We were still arguing about who was the most useless when a child floated past on the roadside. That's right, this was his flying ability. Anna couldn't hold it in any longer. She burst into tears, with crumbs of biscuits flying out of her mouth as she said, Why are other people's abilities so awesome, while I can only change others' names to John?" The hand that was patting her back suddenly stopped. I stood there, stunned. "What did you say?" Anna was still wailing. "Even a dog can guard the house, but what's the lethality of me changing someone's name? Am I going to embarrass them to death?" As she was crying, she suddenly seemed to think of something and turned to look at me expectantly. "You said your ability is more useless. What is your ability?" I felt as if all the blood in my body was boiling. I grabbed Anna's hand tremblingly and shed tears of excitement. "Before today, our abilities were completely useless, but from today on, we will be invincible." Anna looked at me and started crying. "I just found you. Why have you gone crazy?" It wasn't until I explained it to her. She exclaimed "fuck" several times. "You can take away the abilities of anyone named John. Are there any activation conditions?" I was at a loss for words, because I had never used this ability before. I almost forgot about the activation conditions if Anna hadn't mentioned it. Yes. My expression was a bit complicated. As long as John hits me, his ability will be mine. What are your activation conditions? Anna's expression was exactly the same as mine. She scratched her head. I have to hit someone and shout a slogan. After studying it for a while, we decided to give it a try. I took Anna to the back of the pharmacy and knocked on Johnny's door. Johnny's ability was to make people's legs weak, which was also quite useless, so he wasn't doing very well. When he opened the door, he was eating the bread he had snatched from me. He was a bit surprised to see me. Sister, did you really bring something good for your brother? When he saw that I didn't have anything in my hand, Johnny's expression gradually became lewd. I understand. You want to give yourself to your brother, then I will. He reached out his hand towards me. Before he could touch my face, Anna behind me suddenly rushed out and slapped him across the face. Is your name John? Johnny was stunned by the slap. No, I'm not. He wanted to say that his name wasn't John, but for some reason, he couldn't say those words. Finally, he nodded blankly. Yes, my name is John. Anna and I looked at each other. We were so excited that tears welled up in our eyes. The first person named John. I had finally met him. John realized that he had been hit and immediately became furious. How dare you hit me? He raised his hand and slapped me. The moment he slapped me, I leaned my face forward. Slap. He was stunned. I started crying. This was the feeling. I had obtained his ability to soften people's legs. I immediately tried it out. Johnny didn't realize that his ability was gone until he fell to the ground. By then, we had already fled the scene after we got out. Anna firmly held my hand and said, "You don't have to be so tough anymore. I'll bring you a lot of people named John." We reached a consensus. In this world, strength was the most important thing. We had to collect more and stronger abilities as soon as possible, but I also had my bottom line. I would only take the abilities of bad people. Where were there the most bad people? It was definitely the black factory outside the slums. There were a lot of wanted outlaws gathered there. They locked people with weak abilities in cages and made them fight each other, like cockfights, and placed bets on them. The next day, Anna and I rested and prepared ourselves. I prepared iron gloves for her, and she put a steel helmet on me. Without the protection of the high walls of the slums, there were dangerous mutated animals outside at night. We arrived at the black factory before sunset. I knocked on the door vigorously. To my surprise, the person who opened the door was an acquaintance. Anna suddenly grabbed my arm. "Fuck, isn't this your boyfriend?" I corrected her. "Ex-boyfriend, thank you." Carter only recognized me when he saw Anna. He clicked his tongue twice. "Jill, are you wearing a helmet because you got disfigured?" What did I say? You can't survive in the apocalyptic world without supernatural abilities. You were so brave to leave on your own back then, before the apocalypse. Carter's salary was only 1/5 of mine. He lived in my house and drove my car. He pretended to be hardworking and capable and flattered me to the fullest, until he awakened the ability to make parts of people's bodies grow or shrink. He thought I was just a useless person without supernatural abilities and that I would hold him back, so he immediately dumped me. He also found a new girlfriend who was a good match for him and had the ability to make parts of people's bodies harden or soften. At that time, he put his arm around his new girlfriend and said to me condescendingly, "Considering that you served me for several years, you can follow me too." I immediately slapped him and turned around and left. Unexpectedly, when we met again, he was actually working in the black factory. At this time, his girlfriend also came out. When she saw me, she sneered, "Oh, a useless person like her without supernatural abilities can actually still be alive. She must have seduced a lot of men with her body." Before she could finish speaking, Anna slapped her with the iron glove. "Is your name John?" The woman's face visibly swelled up, but she didn't know what Anna's ability was. Seeing how bold Anna was, she didn't dare to act rashly. She turned around and angrily hid in Carter's arms. "Honey, she hit me." "Whoa." Carter comforted her tenderly. "Honey, I'll avenge you. Don't cry." "John." The woman looked confused. "What did you call me?" "Aren't you named John?" The woman, "It seems so." Carter looked at us and snorted coldly. "It's too late for you to kneel and beg for mercy now." Before he could finish speaking, Anna slapped him hard, making his face turn sideways, and I immediately followed up, charging forward and hitting the two of them with my steel helmet. The force has an equal and opposite reaction. If I hit them, it could also be considered that they hit me, right? Carter was knocked flying to the ground. When he came to his senses, he hugged his girlfriend and was furious. "Are you too crazy? Are you here to pick a fight? Fine, then I'll let you experience my ability." Just as he was about to use his ability, he suddenly felt something was wrong. His face turned pale in an instant. "What's going on? Where's my ability?" The woman beside him was also panicking. "I don't have it either." Both of them looked terrified. I calmly took off my helmet and waved at them. "You haven't even tried your own abilities yet, have you?" The activation conditions of their two abilities were much simpler. They just had to stare at the part they wanted to change, and they could use it twice a day. So I stared at the scumbag's lower body and sneered, soften and shrink. Carter suddenly felt the change in his body. His face changed. He opened his pants and looked inside, then collapsed. Jill, what did you do while we were talking? The commotion we caused had already attracted the attention of the people inside the black factory. Soon, someone rushed straight towards me. How dare you cause trouble in the black factory? You're courting death. After saying that, the person fell down in front of me. Anna couldn't believe it and said, how did you do that? I said, I used the scumbag's ability. I didn't see anything on him grow or shrink. It did change. I pointed at his head and said, his cerebellum has atrophied. Anna silently gave me a thumbs up. Some people still wanted to come forward, and Anna slapped them left and right, slap one by one. Is your name John? I then went up and used the principle of the interaction of forces, actively getting myself hit. After dealing with more than a dozen people, those behind didn't dare to move anymore, and I instantly had more than a dozen abilities in my body. They looked at me like I was a monster and rushed inside one after another. Boss, someone is here to cause trouble, Anna and I walked inside. A circle of people surrounded us, but none of them dared to get close until we reached the darkest part. There were cages for locking people all around. A bald man with his upper body bare, his tattoos of a green dragon and a white tiger looking especially terrifying, was wiping a knife. Next to him stood a tall and thin man. Anna was a bit scared and hid behind me. A lackey beside them said excitedly, once our boss makes a move, you're done for. The tall and thin man walked over. He looked at us and sneered. Do you know what my ability is? I told the truth. I don't know now, but I'll know soon. I'll know once I take your ability, right? Obviously, he misunderstood my meaning. After walking around us for no apparent reason, he suddenly laughed at Anna. Ah ha ha ha. I've never seen such a useless ability before. How dare you come to the black factory to cause trouble with such an ability? Oh. So his ability was to see through other people's abilities. The lackey beside him immediately reminded. Be careful of the one next to her. Her ability seems to be to make other people's abilities temporarily ineffective. Alas, young man, you're being superficial. The tall and thin man didn't take it seriously. Let me take a look at her ability. He walked around me while chanting. Softening of the legs, growing and shrinking, hardening and softening, telekinesis, shooting an arrow 100 paces, soundwave attack. My real ability was listed after those abilities I had taken. The tall and thin man looked for a long time but still couldn't see the end. He was so scared that he knelt down directly. He said to the bald boss, Boss, let's admit defeat. The boss spat, Bah, it's just a woman. Are you afraid of her? It's not that. I've never seen a person with so many abilities. She's a bug. But the boss didn't believe it. He picked up the knife and came over, and then he was suddenly slapped by Anna. Half an hour later, I was sitting in the seat where he used to sit, with electricity crackling between my fingertips. No wonder this bald guy could become the boss and make hundreds of people work for him willingly. It turned out that his ability was to control electricity. The most powerful abilities in this world were those that could control natural elements. Before the enemy got close, he could stun them with electricity. There were several rows of people standing in front of me respectfully. There was one row of people whose abilities had been taken away, and another row of those whose abilities hadn't. I waved my hand grandly. From today on, I am your new boss. This is no longer the Black Factory. We're going to open a public welfare bodyguard company. Anna stood beside me and shouted in a shrill voice, those who are willing to stay will be provided with food and accommodation. Those who are not willing will have their names changed to John. Everyone had witnessed what happened to those named John. In this world, without supernatural abilities, one was a useless person. As long as they still had their abilities, it didn't matter who they worked for, right? Some people who had been hesitant immediately nodded their heads vigorously. We're willing. Those whose abilities I had taken away were also willing to stay and work as logistics staff in the factory. Anna was having a great time. She whispered in my ear, since I was a child, when I watched TV, I thought the eunuchs beside the emperor were very imposing. I finally got to experience it without really becoming one. I beckoned to her, come to my room tomorrow. I'll make you feel great. Anna looked at me in horror. She quickly covered her chest. On the second day in the Black Factory, there were indescribable sounds coming from my room. It's so big, I can't take it anymore. I like it so much, I want more. I love it so much. In front of the mirror, Anna looked at her enlarged chest with satisfaction and a rosy complexion. It's so good. I've been flat-chested for more than 20 years, and this is the first time it's been this big. Hurry up. I also want a curvy butt. Then I used Carter's ability to make things grow or shrink to make Anna's, but Kavya, Carter probably never expected that his ability could also be used for beauty and plastic surgery. It was a pity that it could only be used twice. Tomorrow, I still have to slim down Anna's face and waist. The day after tomorrow, I'll give her a perky nose and plump her lips. I've also studied the electricity controlling ability of the bald boss and discovered a new way to use it. Come on, lie face down. I rolled up my sleeves and patted the bed, and immediately lay down on it. I moved my fingers and emitted a sizzling current. Aren't you always suffering from back and waist pain? I'll give you an electromassage, while humming in comfort. Anna sighed. By the way, can you discharge electricity from anywhere on your body? It seems so. Why do you ask? How great it would be if you were a man. Anna turned her head to look at me. Her eyes full of regret. I slapped the back of her head. I think you're really hungry. 6. To transform the Black Factory into John's bodyguard company, we first need to run advertisements. So, after we recuperated, I led everyone to do public welfare work in the slums. We dealt with everything from taking down street ruffians and dealing with mutated beasts to helping grannies cross the road. We also took the opportunity to persuade those who used their abilities to burn, kill, and loot to surrender, don't want to surrender. Then changed their name to John. Before long, there were more and more subordinates in the factory, and people were spreading the word that there was a mysterious organization that did good deeds without asking for anything in return, and everyone in the organization was called John. I heard that when old people teach children to sing, it goes like this: learn from John, be a good example. Although our reputation outside has improved, with more people in the factory, there are also more disputes. Several people have come to complain today. John and John got into a fight because John said that John is not as good as John. This matter must have been instigated by John, who is from the same hometown as John. My mind was in a complete mess listening to all this. I suddenly realized that this couldn't go on, with everyone being called John. It's completely chaotic. There's no organization or discipline. So, Anna and I gathered all the Johns together. Carter now firmly believes that his name is John, so I had to say, your real name is John, and your nickname is Scumbag John. Then I pointed at his new girlfriend. You're called the Strong Woman, the one with dyed yellow hair is called Yellow Hair John, and the one with an earring is called Earring John. Anna and I gave nicknames to everyone according to their characteristics. Finally, it was the turn of the bald guy. You're called Bald John. Okay, everyone, remember your nicknames. From now on in the company, we'll only use the nicknames, not the real names. After solving the internal conflicts, a subordinate who was working as a security guard outside suddenly stumbled in and said in a panic, "Boss, someone is here to cause trouble." Tisk, I was dissatisfied. Be civilized. We're a regular company. What do you mean by causing trouble? This is called corporate communication. But when I saw those two men who were clearly up to no good and were dressed in black and white, I realized, oh, they really are here to cause trouble. 7. The two men calmly sized up my place and started to complain about the decoration and furnishings, as if this place already belonged to them. It's so presumptuous. Blackie saw our group come out. He asked leisurely, "Which one of you is the boss?" Everyone took a step back in unison, leaving me standing at the front. Me, you, a woman, ha 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 ha. The two of them burst into laughter. All you men are actually willing to work under a woman. Don't you have any backbone? My Johns reminded me carefully from behind. I advise you to stop talking. I insist on talking. Is this woman's ability really that powerful? Can't all of you beat her alone? The Johns took another step back. Only the tall and thin guy came up and whispered, "Boss, one of their abilities is to control water, and the other is to control fire. They're not easy to deal with." I pretended to be calm and waved my hand. It's a minor issue. After the tall and thin guy stepped back, Anna quietly leaned in, looking very worried. They're coming with great momentum. I'm afraid I can't get close to them. I'm worried that I'll be roasted as soon as I go up. I waved my hand again. It's a minor issue. Anna elbowed me in the waist. Who are you trying to show off to? I had to give her a meaningful look. Don't worry for now. After all, I have more than 20 abilities in my hands now, but to my surprise, Blackie and Whitey didn't let anyone get close at all. Many of my abilities couldn't be triggered, and when I used some ineffective abilities, they even laughed at me. Is that all? I thought you were much more powerful. Heh. I'm not going to play with you anymore. After getting rid of you, this territory will be ours. The two of them exchanged a glance. One activated his fire ability, and the other activated his water ability. I held my breath and concentrated. This was the moment. I stretched out my hand and summoned streaks of lightning to strike at them. The two of them didn't take it seriously at all. Don't you know that a powerful water shield can block lightning? Just as I saw the huge water shield rise, the two of them showed smiles of victory. The next second, A huge mushroom cloud accompanied by an explosion appeared in the air. When the smoke cleared, Blackie and Whitey lay on the ground, all blackened, emitting a dark aura. Why is this happening? I clapped my hands and sighed. Water is electrolyzed into hydrogen and oxygen, which will explode when it meets fire. Learn math, physics, and chemistry well, and you won't be afraid even in the apocalypse. My chemistry teacher didn't lie to me. Abilities certainly have their strengths and weaknesses, but how to use them depends on the person. The two of them were lying on the ground, and suddenly they got up and started fighting each other. It's all your fault. If you hadn't failed to get rid of her earlier, would we have been blown up? It's your fault. You were the one who set the fire. The two of them were fighting fiercely. I gave a sneaky smile. Carter's ability is really useful. I just made their hearts smaller. And now they're fighting each other. I waved to Anna. She hopped over and slapped each of them, giving them the name John. After successfully acquiring the fire-controlling and water-controlling abilities, I was about to close the door with the Johns when suddenly a foot blocked the door crack. Are they here to cause trouble again? Are you also here to? I looked up and was stunned. What a damn handsome face. Before I could say the word trouble, I flicked my hair directly. Are you here looking for a partner? Handsome guy? 8. The person who came stood tall and had a handsome face. He was wearing a simple and neat white t-shirt, and there was an inexplicable sense of oppression. He smiled distantly. I'm here looking for a job. Are you the boss here? I wonder if you're still hiring. Before I could speak, Anna jumped out first. Yes, you look very familiar to me. What's your name, handsome guy? Henry. Henry said that he got separated from his friends and it was too dangerous to be alone outside, so he wanted to find a place to stay first. He heard that everyone here is a good person, so he came here. I'm very proud of this. Under my management, the Black Factory now has a great reputation. Henry's ability is to create a clone of himself, an exact copy of him. To be honest, this ability is rather useless. At night, the Johns all gave me the same suggestion. This Henry's ability is really weak. Why should we hire him? But he's handsome. It will cost us more food to support one more person in our company, but he's handsome. We don't have any extra work for him either, but he's handsome. They were speechless. You've taken a fancy to him, haven't you? I was shocked. Is it that obvious? You've been lingering outside his room for half an hour. Suddenly, the sound of the door opening came from the room. I quickly pulled that group of people and fled the scene. Henry is really handsome. Before the apocalypse, I only saw such a perfect guy on TV. The first time I saw him, I felt a rush of lust and fell in love at first sight. Anna also encouraged me to win him over. His ability seems useless at first glance, but it's actually extremely powerful. I was confused. What do you mean? Anna said earnestly. The ability to create a clone. Just imagine, there will be one of him in front and one of him behind. And you can change your size, become soft or hard, and then add electricity. Before she could finish, I covered her mouth. I shouldn't have turned a blind eye when she was addicted to pornographic novels. I'm really starting to feel tempted, but I've never chased a man in my life, so I'm not very confident. I thought I'd use some help. I searched and searched in the ability library and found an ability called I See Through You that I don't know when I acquired. Judging from the name, this ability should be something like mind reading, right? Although it's not very fair. If I can find out what kind of girl Henry likes, wouldn't I have the answer to winning him over? To use this ability, I need to be face to face with the person, so I knocked on Henry's door. He had been out with everyone to exterminate mutated animals for the past 2 days. He had just taken a shower, and the ends of his hair were still dripping with water. He was dressed in a white t-shirt and black pants, looking very refreshing. Boss, he called me politely. Is there something wrong? It's nothing. I'm here to ask about the basic situation of the new employee. Is it convenient? Henry nodded. I casually found some topics to talk about. I secretly activated the ability I See Through You. How old are you this year? 26. It's the first time I've eavesdropped on someone's thoughts. I'm a little excited. The ability was successfully triggered. I took a casual glance and was petrified on the spot. Henry, who was just wearing a white t-shirt and black pants, now appeared to me with his upper body bare, revealing his smooth pectoral muscles. The water dripping from his hair slid down his collarbone. Looking further down, there were his standard 8-pack abs. Further down, there was the alluring mermaid line. I continued to look down and widen my eyes. So big. Henry was a bit confused. Is my age too old? I'm sorry. I didn't know you had such strict age restrictions for hiring. Before he could finish speaking, he suddenly exclaimed, You're bleeding from your nose. I suddenly came to my senses and quickly covered my nose. I'm fine. It's just dry weather. Then I turned around and ran away. Who could have expected this? I See Through You is not mind reading. It literally means what it says. It's X-ray vision. Damn it. Whose ability is this? It's so exciting. 9. Seeing that it's difficult for me to win Henry over on my own, Anna, who claims to have rich experience, gave me an idea. A few days later, Henry sprained his waist while dealing with mutated animals outside with the others. Under my instruction, the only doctor in the factory took a vacation, and I, holding a bottle of medicinal wine, knocked on Henry's door with ill intentions. He was a bit surprised to see me. Boss, I know a bit about massage. How about I give you a massage? Just as Henry was about to refuse, I added, after all, if you don't get better soon, you won't be able to help us. Henry paused for a moment and then stepped aside to let me in. His room was very small, just a converted storage room. His 8-meter-tall body lying on the single bed made the room look cramped and made my heart race. I pretended to be calm and started massaging his lean and strong waist. Remembering the method Anna taught me, I cleared my throat. Do you believe in love at first sight? What? I heard that the feeling of love at first sight is like having an electric current running through your body when you see that person. Henry turned his head and gave me a puzzled look. At the moment of our eye contact, I secretly used my ability to give him an electric shock. Henry let out a muffled groan unexpectedly, which made my heart itch. I could see that his ears were already red. I asked knowingly, "What's wrong with you?" "It's nothing." He lay back down as if nothing had happened. "You little rascal, you're really good at pretending." As I massaged his waist, I gave him another electric shock. This time, he endured it and didn't make a sound. "Didn't you feel the electric current just now?" "I didn't feel anything." "I'm not going to give up so easily." I increased the intensity and pressed my hands hard on his waist. The next second, I felt numb all over my body, went limp, and fainted beside Henry. An hour later, Anna deliberately led a group of people into the room and saw me and Henry lying on the bed together. Henry had his upper body bare, and I had a flushed face. "Oops, I didn't know you were busy. Everyone, get up quickly." Everyone rushed out in a hurry. Only Henry and I, who had just regained consciousness, stared at each other with wide eyes. He seemed to realize something, and the tips of his ears instantly turned red. He said in a deep voice, "I will take responsibility for you." I was about to say "don't get me wrong," but swallowed those words and changed my tune. "That's okay then." Afterwards, Anna asked me how I made such rapid progress and ended up sleeping with him. I was too embarrassed to say that I electrocuted myself and fainted, but at least, I've won him over. I vowed to find a boyfriend for Anna too. With her perfect figure that I've transformed, she deserves a young version of Daniel Wu. "Forget it," Anna smiled indifferently. "I've had enough fun in the past. Now I don't want to waste my energy on relationships. After all, in this world, we don't know how long it will last." 10. After Henry recovered from his injury, he went out with several ability teams to help the slums deal with troublesome mutated animals. Since I just won him over and was really into him, I went with them. The once bustling and lively streets are now in a mess. The ground is cracked, and the glass of the shops is shattered all over the place. Henry picked up a doll from the ground and gave it to me. I don't know how long it will be before these things disappear completely. I looked at the crumbling high-rise building and suddenly thought of the days when I worked in an office building. At that time, the work pressure was high, and I used to complain about the end of the world every day. I never thought that such a day would really come. I really want to work overtime one more time. "Henry, what did you do for a living before?" Henry was taken aback for a moment and looked away. "Just an ordinary job." I didn't ask any more questions. I saw a dusty rabbit keychain in the corner, something that Anna would like, so I picked it up and took it with me. In the evening, the sunset in the apocalypse was also gray. When we got back, Anna was sitting on the rooftop, swinging her legs. I was almost scared to death when I saw her. "Anna." She waved at me as if nothing was wrong. "Jill." I ran up and sat down beside her. "What are you doing here?" "Watching the sunset." Anna pointed to the horizon and said, "Just now, for a moment, it was very much like the sunsets in the past. I really miss the old days when we could go to the amusement park, watch movies, and eat hot pot when we had nothing to do." Looking at Anna's profile, I suddenly realized that I had neglected her feelings these days. Anna's ability is just to change other people's names. If we're not together, she has no ability to protect herself at all and must feel very insecure. "Not at all." Anna shook her head directly when she heard my question. "You know, I've always been a slacker. I'd rather lie down than stand, and I'd rather hide than take the lead. Now that you're taking care of things in front, I can be like a pendant by your side. Isn't this my dream?" Moreover, the people who usually stay in this factory are all ordinary people who have lost their abilities, just like me. I actually feel like I'm back in normal society. Only then did I let out a sigh of relief. I took her hand and said seriously, if anything happens, you must tell me. You're the only family I have. Anna was taken aback for a moment and then nodded. I actually do have something to tell you. My heart skipped a beat. What is it? She leaned in seriously and whispered in my ear, have you actually tried Henry's clone ability? Me? I'll try it tonight. 11. Hearing that I wasn't feeling well, Henry rushed to my room in a hurry. It was only when he saw me wearing a cool nightgown and posing artificially on the bed. He was a bit silent. Jill, I have something to tell you. I waved my hand. Lie down and tell me. I'm serious. Then lie down and tell me seriously. Henry lay down beside me. Before he could say a word, I pounced on him and covered his mouth. I forgot to mention, there's a rule in the factory. No talking during meals and no talking in bed. Henry looked at me with an unreadable expression. The next second, he turned over and pinned me underneath him, his breathing becoming rapid. I wrapped my arms around his neck and said in his ear, if you're too tired on your own, why not use your ability? Henry's body stiffened a bit, and his voice was obviously hoarse. I don't need to. Before I could say anything else, Henry, as if eager to prove something, it blocked my lips with annoyance. The next second, his hand pulled down my nightgown. The palm pressing on my shoulder was astonishingly hot, and it moved all the way down, taking over territory. I was completely overwhelmed by his fierce attack. All night long, all I could think about was that he was indeed as I had seen. He's not just all show. I had originally thought of using the abilities to change my size, become soft or hard. Goodness, if I used those abilities too, I'd be done for. As dawn was approaching, Henry held me and didn't sleep. I wasn't sleepy either. You said you had something serious to talk about before. You can say it now. Henry looked a bit helpless. Isn't this an inappropriate time? Why is it inappropriate? We're being honest with each other now. His face immediately turned red. Before he could recover, he heard my next words. Moreover, you've been scheming to get close to me, isn't it, for this serious matter? Henry was stunned. I let out a sigh. Henry probably didn't know that in my ability library, there's an ability that can detect the activation of abilities around me. Since Henry came here, he has been creating a clone and sending it out almost every few days, and then coming back during the day, based on my observations over the past few days. He had no other purpose but to get close to me, and when I asked him what his job was during the day, he told me it was an ordinary job. This precisely shows that his job isn't ordinary. Henry acquiesced. After being silent for a while, he said, do you want the world to go back to the way it was? 12. I widened my eyes. The world is in the apocalypse. How can it go back to the way it was? Is this a joke? How can it be restored? Henry frowned slightly and said, you asked me about my job before. Actually, I'm engaged in genetic research. Since the start of the apocalypse, the country has assembled a group of researchers to conduct secret research, attempting to slow down the process of the world's destruction. Henry and his team have been researching for 3 years, and they have only recently made some progress. The mutation of all other living organisms is caused by human abilities. I don't understand those technical terms either. Anyway, if there are no abilities in the world, then the entire ecosystem will gradually return to normal. Henry noticed me because he went to the slums and met Johnny. After losing his ability, Johnny still swaggered around relying on his physique and said, my ability used to be really awesome. If I told you, you'd be scared to death. It's a pity that 2 crazy women stole it. This was the first time Henry had heard that abilities could disappear since he started participating in the research. So he asked around all the way and found the Black Factory, and after witnessing me defeat Blackie and Whitey, he decided to get close to me first and figure out the situation. I got out of Henry's arms and silently distanced myself from him. So, during this time, what have you figured out? There was silence for a few seconds behind me. Henry's voice came, you can take away other people's abilities and store them in your body. And there's no upper limit, so, if I take away everyone's abilities, there will be no such thing as abilities in this world, and the world can go back to the way it was. Henry nodded. I just thought it was a bit funny, but in that case, I'll be the only one in the world with abilities. What are you going to do with me? This container. You don't think that I, who will be invincible at that time, will obediently go to my death, do you? No. Henry frowned slightly. We have developed a genetic chamber that can help you eliminate your abilities through external force. Since you can directly eliminate the abilities, why come to me? There's only one genetic chamber, but we don't have time left. I was stunned. What do you mean? According to the prediction, the real apocalypse will come in a month. I was a bit slow to react, but I'm just one person, even if I'm willing. I can't take away all the abilities in a month by going after them one by one. Henry grabbed my wrist. If you have my ability, you can. What's the difference between becoming two people? Henry smiled bitterly. Who said I can only create two clones? In the next minute, I watched as the Henry in the room multiplied from 1 to 2, from 2 to 4, until the room was filled with Henrys. I was petrified. Goodness, it turns out his clones can multiply further. Even copy-pasting isn't as fast as him. He alone is like an army. This is simply extremely powerful. All the Henrys in the room said at the same time, and that genetic chamber that can eliminate abilities has risks. My head was a bit dizzy. What do you mean? He paused. You have an 80% probability of dying. 13. For the next 2 days, I didn't mention this matter at all, as if it had never happened. I even took the time to go to the slums. The place where I used to live was near the garbage dump. This time when I went there, I met an old neighbor, Grandpa George, whose ability was to make flowers bloom. Since this ability wasn't very useful, like me, he had been struggling to make a living. Later, when I became powerful, I helped him find a place to live. Grandpa George was very happy to see me again. Haven't seen you for a long time. I sat down beside him as if nothing had happened and said, yeah, I've been really busy before. Why are you back at the garbage dump? Just came to take a look, he said, turning to look at the stinking garbage dump, as if he could see its former appearance through the garbage. Here used to be a botanical garden, not a garbage dump. I took care of it. I'm really good at taking care of flowers and plants. No matter how precious the flowers and plants are, I can take good care of them. At that time, there were a lot of people coming to the botanical garden every day. They took photos in the garden and drank flower tea. Many people praised my flower tea for being delicious. It's a pity you never got to taste it. Later, probably because I had too much contact with flowers and plants, the ability I awakened was to make flowers bloom, but without healthy soil and water sources, how can flowers survive? I listened in silence, looking at the few people walking around sporadically on the street. Their faces were heavy, and none of them were smiling. I could faintly hear the piercing barks of mutated animals on the outskirts of the slums. I wonder how much longer it will last. Grandpa George said this out of the blue. I wasn't sure if he was talking about the world or himself, until the gray sun was about to set. I was about to leave. Grandpa George stopped me. Wait a moment. I turned around to look. I saw him put his hands together, muttering something. When he opened his hands again, he was holding a sunflower in his palm, although it will wither by tomorrow morning. At least you can see the color of life. I took it and smiled. Thank you, Grandpa. I hope I'll have the chance to taste your flower tea in the botanical garden someday. He shook his head and didn't say anything. When I turned to leave, I heard him sigh. There's no future anymore. I went back and gave the flower to Anna. She was very happy. There used to be a patch of sunflowers in front of my house. Do you remember, the dog I raised really liked to sleep among the flowers. As she spoke, her voice became lower and lower. It's really beautiful. 14. What I didn't know is that during the time when I didn't give Henry an answer, the other people involved in the secret research were going crazy with anxiety. Has Jill still not agreed? Except for Henry, he didn't go to the research lab every day either. Instead, he just did some odd jobs in the factory I managed. When asked, he said he was waiting, but with the apocalypse approaching, no one can afford to wait, so they had to come and urge me again. I advise you to be cautious. If you're not completely sure, don't give your ability to her. Their concerns were well-founded. What if I took Henry's ability and then refused to have my abilities eliminated? With so many abilities in my possession and the ability to split, wouldn't I be able to take revenge on society in no time? Henry smiled self-deprecatingly. In today's society, what's the difference between taking revenge or not? The person was left speechless. During this time, I either wandered around in the slums or used various abilities to show off my skills and kill the mutated animals that were going crazy and hurting people. All my behavior seemed to indicate that I was indulging in the superiority brought by my abilities and was unwilling to become ordinary again. But Henry was very certain. The reason she's like this is that she has already made up her mind. 15. Before going to find Henry, I went to find Anna first. I want an ability. After hearing what I said, Anna didn't even look up. Which one do you have your eye on? Let's go and get it. Yours. She was taken aback for a moment. I smiled. This time, I need your ability. I have to take away Anna's and Henry's abilities so that I can collect all the abilities in the world in the shortest time and then enter the genetic chamber to have them destroyed. Before I even finished explaining the reason, Anna gave herself a hit. If you want it, I'll give it to you. My eyes became a bit moist. Anna said she had 2 things to tell me. First, you have to succeed. I don't want to be buried with the name John. Second, she touched my face. If you want my ability, You have to get beaten, don't worry, I'll be gentle. Me, wait a minute, what's with that eager look in your eyes? 16. After taking away Henry's ability, he saw me off to the helicopter. There's someone in a certain country who has the ability to teleport through space. I need to use his ability to complete this difficult ability recovery plan. The sand and dust blew into my eyes, and I turned my head away without looking at him. Thanks, what are you thanking me for? His voice was a bit hoarse. I forced a smile and pretended to be relaxed. Thanks to you, I at least have some happy memories. I haven't told this to anyone else, actually. I paused. I'm a bit scared. I'm afraid of the destruction of the world, afraid that I won't be able to complete the task, and even more afraid that after I collect all the abilities, I'll die in the genetic chamber. I'm afraid that the brand new world will have everything I'm looking forward to, except me, but I can't not do it, after all. The things and people I love are all waiting for me to save them. I'm really amazing, just like a superhero. I didn't hesitate any longer and was about to step into the plane when I was suddenly grabbed by someone. The next second, Henry bent down and kissed me. In the midst of the swirling sand and dust, we kissed before the apocalypse. Finally, he said, I'll be waiting for you. 17. 5 years later. It's the 5th year since the start of the new era, and society has resumed its operation. Because there were so many messes to deal with, I worked overtime in the building for another day. Remembering what I said before about wanting to work overtime, I really want to punch myself to death. On my way home from work, a couple was playing with their 5-year-old grandson. They were telling him a story. 5 years ago, during the apocalypse, everyone had abilities and was really impressive. But the world was also heading towards destruction. Suddenly, one day, everyone's abilities were taken away by one person. Since then, the world has returned to normal. The older child immediately answered, I know, that's a superhero. I couldn't help but laugh. The child stared at me. What are you laughing at? I've seen her. You've seen her. Then tell me what she looks like. My ability turned out to be taking away John's ability. I choked up. At that time, I thought I wouldn't be able to survive. And I was always a bit unwilling. On the way to recover the abilities, I used my ability to give myself a peerless beauty and a perfect figure, and admired myself for a while. I didn't expect that's what the child saw. He probably never dreamed that. The fairy back then is now the office worker full of the smell of work standing in front of him. I let out a helpless sigh. I turned my head and saw Henry standing beside the car, wearing a coat and opening his arms towards me. I smiled and threw myself into his arms. Why are you here? Do I need a reason to pick up my wife from work? Also, I have something for you. I got in the car, and he took out a medal from the back seat. It said Human Hero on it. Although your contribution can't be made public, this is a medal secretly awarded to you by the country. I stroked the medal and smiled. Then I'll hang it on the headboard of our bed. I can brag about it for the rest of my life. He kissed the corner of my mouth. Shall we go see the sunrise tomorrow? No. I've made an appointment with Anna to buy flowers. Her yard has been repaired, and we've agreed to help her plant sunflowers. What about the day after tomorrow? Also no, I have to go to the botanical garden. Grandpa George specially saved a pack of his flower tea for me. Henry smiled bitterly. My wife is really busy. He stroked my hair, turned the steering wheel, and drove into the traffic. The setting sun ahead was bright and shining with golden light. It doesn't matter. We have a lot of time in the future. Story 2. Before the end of the world, my mother-in-law was making videos on a popular platform, showing off the supplies we had hoarded at home from every angle, even including the location. When the apocalypse arrived, my home was ravaged by starving, desperate refugees. My daughter and I were tragically killed by these refugees, given a second chance. Before the end of the world approached, I prudently sent my mother-in-law back to her hometown. I also stocked up on food and supplies for her. Since you love sharing so much, you might as well die alone. Waking up from a nightmare during a hot day with the air conditioning on, I was covered in a cold sweat. I had dreamed of an apocalyptic world facing extreme cold, with a shortage of food and clothing. I own a supermarket and had heard some rumors, so I skeptically stocked up on supplies before the extreme cold hit, which turned out to be a lifesaver during the apocalypse. However, in the dream, because my mother-in-law loves to show off everything on social media, even trivial matters, our home supplies caught the attention of some evildoers. A short video by my mother-in-law brought deadly consequences to our family. The dream was so vivid. I could feel the gruesome pain of being cut by a blunt knife and the heart-wrenching agony of watching my young daughter being killed. It felt so real that I was bewildered, unable to believe it was just a dream. After waking from the nightmare, I couldn't go back to sleep. I looked at my young daughter, peacefully asleep, and gently tucked her in before leaving the bedroom. Passing by my mother-in-law's room, I noticed her door slightly ajar, light from her phone screen spilling through the crack. It was late at night, and she was still tirelessly scrolling through TikTok. She always does this. Just yesterday, she was complaining to her son about recent headaches and eye pain. My husband Nolan asked me to take her to the doctor for medication, and today, feeling slightly better, she started her antics again. I went to the living room to get some water, scrolling through Facebook on my phone, when I came across a post about how to view this year's unusual weather. I paused. The post mentioned that after an extremely hot summer would come extreme cold, advising everyone to stock up on supplies to survive the harsh conditions. People in the comments were mocking him. I clicked on the poster's profile, which was empty, and the IP address displayed as unknown. Suddenly, loud music burst from the room. Annoyed, I walked towards my mother-in-law's bedroom. I saw her sitting up in bed, fumbling to turn off her phone. "Mom, haven't I told you many times to keep the noise down at night? Tessa needs to sleep." My mother-in-law sheepishly touched her nose. I accidentally fell asleep, and my phone fell off the bed. Pulling out the earphones, she always does things that raise one's blood pressure, seemingly by accident, yet she handles her mistakes so well that it's hard to reprimand her. But behind the scenes, she complains to her son about how hard it is for her in this household. Frustrated and dizzy with anger, I felt as if I had experienced this scene before. The next day, the supermarket's purchasing department requested my approval to order a large batch of goods. The list they handed me was almost entirely composed of grains, oils, cereals, and food, as well as blankets and winter clothing. It matched the scenario in my dream. Excitedly, I grabbed an employee, asking if a major client had come in. The employee confirmed it. Moreover, this client stipulated a condition that since his house was being renovated, he needed to store the goods in our warehouse for an additional half-month. Yes, it was him. In the dream, it was this same client who made a large purchase at our supermarket. Considering that there are only a few major supermarkets in the city, I found it odd, so I started making discreet inquiries within the circle. I found out that this person had placed orders not only with our supermarket but also with others. Stocking up in such large quantities was strange. But surely he couldn't be sourcing from competitors to open his own supermarket. What was even stranger was that many of our suppliers reported being out of stock. Apparently, many factories hadn't even shipped their products before big clients had reserved them all. I sensed something unusual about the situation, so, in addition to compiling the customer's purchase order, I mobilized all available resources and stocked up massively, filling the warehouse and even my home. Now, I am still doing the same. I gather resources for the customers and procure even more supplies than I could have imagined in my dreams. Besides that, I remember the gruesome scene from my dream. If the apocalypse were to come, more important than having supplies would be the ability to protect them. After organizing things in the supermarket, I found a good renovation company and rushed home with the designers and contractors. Tessa was at kindergarten, and only my mother-in-law was at home. When I opened the door, I found her wearing my necklace and jewelry, complemented by my silk hat, making a video on some social media platform. Why wasn't she wearing my clothes? I guess it was because her plump figure couldn't fit into them. She seemed surprised by my unexpected return, greeted me awkwardly, and quickly retreated to her room, leaving aside the awkwardness with my mother-in-law. I discussed my renovation requirements with the designer, focusing on two aspects: the best insulation system for the entire house, and since we had been burglarized before, I wanted a very reliable security system. I told the designer, not skimping on expenses, that cost was no object and I wanted the best of everything. I asked him to present the design drafts first. If satisfied, after my house, I would have him redo the supermarket too. The designer was visibly excited and quickly produced the design drafts within 2 days. After showing the drafts to a knowledgeable friend who approved them, we began construction. My mother-in-law couldn't understand why I would want to renovate the house in the heat of summer. I simply mentioned that the summer was exceptionally hot this year, and I heard it could become very cold in winter. Moreover, I was wary of her possibly betraying me as in my dream, so I suggested that since it was too hot, she should take Tessa to the countryside for the summer break once school was out. The rural summers, with their abundant trees and forests, are surely cooler than the city. With the ongoing renovations, it was a good time for her to go back first. Initially, she was reluctant, but after I gave her 30,000 yuan to see if there was anything she needed to buy for the house, she happily packed her bags and left. What would she need to buy for that house? Nolan, ever the dutiful son, felt guilty for not having moved his parents to the city to enjoy a better life after getting married, fearing they might suffer in the countryside. Thus, in the year he got married, he paid to completely renovate their rural home, equipping it with all modern amenities including a fridge, air conditioning, and a direct drinking water system. Unfortunately, his father didn't enjoy these comforts for long before he passed away. Nolan felt sorry for his mother living alone in the countryside. So he decided to move her to the city, and well, since the marriage, the task of caring for his mother-in-law has been left to me. He claims to have projects overseas and hasn't been home for over a year. Nolan works in construction and often travels around, which means we have a long-distance marriage. But previously, no matter where Nolan went, he always thinks of us, my daughter and me. Always bringing gifts when he returns home, and spending time with Tessa right away, so I am somewhat lenient towards my mother-in-law. But now, I'm reflecting on some clues from a dream. After seeing off my mother-in-law, I contacted someone to investigate Nolan. A few days after my mother-in-law left, Nolan called me. He specifically asked about his mom's trip back home. I repeated the same story I had told his mother, and also mentioned that I gave her 30,000 yuan and prepared a truckload of food and supplies for her to take back. His tone shifted from dissatisfaction to satisfaction, which led me to guess that my mother-in-law probably kept all these details from him. To her son, she only mentioned that I asked her to return to her hometown. Before she left, I thought about it for a long time and finally decided to load up a pickup truck with food and drink and had someone take it back to her hometown. If it was an unintentional oversight in the dream, then this time, I've given her a way out. The house back home is large, even having a basement that stays warm in winter and cool in summer. The woodpile there also fills 2 large rooms. I believe that as long as she doesn't show off and stays low-key at home, these supplies should be enough to help her through the winter, because in the dream, Tessa and I died just before dawn. By then, the national rescue teams were already deployed, saving people along the way and combating marauding villains. During that time, she hid herself in the storage room. The death of Tessa and me bought her time until the rescue arrived. By the way, with so much stuff brought back this time, tell Mom to keep it low-key, don't post everything online. It's not the theft I'm afraid of, but the thieves' interest. That was the last lifeline I gave. Alright, I got it. You and your daughter take care too. I'm busy, gotta go now. On the other end of the phone, after asking about his mother, Nolan hastily ended the call, and there I was, holding a photo of him and another woman, looking cozy together, my eyes cold. So this was his busy with a project abroad. In reality, he was setting up a small family with another woman back in the country, and the woman's visibly pregnant belly indicated she was at least 6 months along. Fine, very fine indeed. After returning to her hometown, my mother-in-law indeed hadn't changed her ways. She updated her social media frequently. Many relatives and friends from her hometown commented, asking if she had returned. She replied that she came back to escape the summer heat and invited them to visit her home, saying she would return to the city in a few months. People commented on how well prepared her house was with food and drinks, to which she responded with a grin, "My son is filial." In short, my mother-in-law was living quite comfortably back in her hometown. Nolan did call a few times, urging me to clean up the house and bring Tessa back sooner to keep the old lady from feeling lonely. Hardly. I forwarded Nolan a video from my mother-in-law's TikTok. In the video, she was either dancing in new clothes for a selfie, or she was surrounded by relatives, chattering away in her house, with a special close-up of the standing air conditioner, or she was displaying the goods I sent, picking out the expensive ones to open and show off while eating. Mom is indeed better off back home, with company. Look how happy she is. Nolan did not reply to me for a long time after watching. Eventually, he only responded, "Mom is old. I'm not comfortable with her being alone at home, but remember to come back soon." For the first 30 years, he never said a word. After getting married, he suddenly became the perfect filial son. It didn't matter. It was only for a few days anyway. I verbally agreed. All right. I also asked Nolan when the project would be finished and when he would return to the country. Suddenly, he fell silent, and during that hesitant gap, the sound of a woman's low moan came through the phone. My fingernails dug into my palm, causing me real pain. I ignored the unusual sounds from the other end of the phone and asked him again when he would return. This time, he spoke more slowly, gently saying, Soon. I said okay. We would finalize the car purchase when he got back. Nolan had been wanting to change cars, but didn't have enough cash on hand and had hinted that I should pay for it. Remembering this, he quickly agreed, saying he would be back soon. Good, come back soon, deadbeat man. In this life, I will also make you pay a price. As the extremely cold weather approached, I paid extra to have the renovation workers speed up. I personally supervised the installation of reinforced thick steel plate insulation layers, making sure there was no skimping on materials. I also chose several structurally solid locations in the supermarket warehouse for heavy-duty use, and had the designer provide me with the blueprints. The renovations were quickly arranged. I planned the supermarket renovation to create a safe haven for the employees, hoping everyone would safely survive this disaster. Due to the extreme heat this year, Tessa's kindergarten started summer vacation early. By this time, my house had been renovated. I moved into our safe house with Tessa. I counted the days. There was only one day left until the temperature dropped. Unexpectedly, at this critical moment, my mother-in-law came to town. On the same day, Nolan also returned. He brought with him a pregnant woman with a noticeable belly. My mother-in-law arrived first. When she returned, it was unprecedented. I saw her carrying a large bag of items. You should know, despite her many trips to the city, she had never brought anything to our house before. Even the first time Nolan brought her to stay in the city, she came with absolutely nothing, not even a change of clothes, and eagerly expected me to buy them. So today's scenario was truly out of the ordinary for her. She put the stuff in the living room and then went straight back out. When she came back in, she was dragging a suitcase and a large woven bag, followed by a man and a woman. They looked somewhat familiar. I hadn't recalled which relatives they were when the woman behind started greeting me warmly. "Ah, Nolan's wife, long time no see, you've gotten even prettier." Hearing her thick local accent and seeing her exaggeratedly ingratiating expression, I suddenly remembered seeing this woman when Nolan and I got married. What struck me was at the wedding toast. She gave a long speech and then complained that the red envelope I gave was not enough. She directly grabbed a handful from the gift tray. At that time, I had asked Nolan who she was, and he mentioned she was some distant relative from his mother's side, and told me not to mind it. So what was the situation with her visit today? It wasn't until my mother-in-law asked everyone to sit down and started explaining with a pleasant demeanor that I understood. The woman before me is a distant cousin by marriage of my mother-in-law, indeed referred to as my aunt by marriage. The man is her husband. They came to the city this time to seek medical treatment. The issue isn't too severe. Recently, my uncle by marriage has been experiencing chest pains, coughing, and dizziness. The local doctor's medication didn't help, so it was recommended that they visit a larger hospital. Oh dear, Nolan's wife, you wouldn't believe how much we owe to your mother. She's so kind-hearted. When she heard that my old man should visit a big hospital, she brought us here without a second thought. Your family is full of good people, big sister. You truly have the heart of a saint, my family, and I will remember your kindness for a lifetime. Aunt Nolan kept on praising incessantly, as if compliments cost her nothing. My mother-in-law was already floating on cloud nine. It wasn't until she noticed my puzzled expression that she remembered she hadn't mentioned this to me. She was a bit embarrassed. Touching her nose, she explained to me, "Your uncle by marriage has symptoms similar to what I had before, constantly coughing." I thought, since the doctor you took me to is so good, why not let them see him too? When the time comes, you just make the arrangements in advance. Turning to Aunt Nolan, she said, "I'm telling you, getting an appointment with Dr. Kung is quite difficult, even here in the city. It's usually only officials and the wealthy who can get a slot. If it weren't for our connections, you wouldn't even know which direction to find his clinic." I was absolutely mortified by my mother-in-law's shamelessness and vanity. Yes, she knew how hard it was to get an appointment with Dr. Kong. Even initially, to secure an appointment with him, I had to leverage connections and spend money. I had told her how difficult it was, but now, not only did it become a topic for her to boast about, but she also unabashedly boasted and generated new business for me with every word she spoke. "All right then, Mom. How did you know I recently booked a follow-up with Dr. Kong for you?" My mother-in-law looked puzzled. I continued, "About your lung issue. Although Dr. Kong cured it, he also advised me to bring you for regular checkups to prevent a relapse, which could be much worse and unresponsive to medication." "Mom, you know how difficult it is to get an appointment with Dr. Kong, and we need to book months in advance. But obviously, the situation with Uncle by marriage is more urgent, Mom. With your kind heart, you'd surely give up your slot for Uncle by marriage, right?" I tossed the question back to my mother-in-law. Her face showed her dilemma. She hadn't expected this twist. She's usually very cautious about her health. However, in front of Aunt Nolan and her husband, facing their hopeful looks, she reluctantly nodded her head, seeing her agreement. Aunt Nolan and her husband were overjoyed and started celebrating. At that moment, Aunt Nolan finally remembered the thing she had brought. She opened the bag she carried in, and like presenting a treasure, she handed it to me. "Nolan's wife, we didn't have much to bring from our hometown, but we brought some sweet potatoes from our farm. I hope you don't mind." I politely accepted them. With the conversation over, and seeing the large and small bags they brought, it seemed they also planned to stay at our house. My mother-in-law was probably still thinking about her checkup and was distracted. Aunt Nolan also stood there awkwardly, waiting for the host's arrangement. As the host, of course, I graciously arranged for them to stay in the guest room. My mother-in-law's face grew even colder. I suggested Aunt Nolan go downstairs for a walk and planned to take them out for dinner later. Aunt Nolan went downstairs beaming with joy. Left alone in the room with my mother-in-law, she then asked if it was still possible to get another appointment with Dr. Kong, or to tell Aunt Nolan that the appointment couldn't be transferred to someone else. I feigned difficulty in deciding. My mother-in-law is quite shrewd. She has done everything to maintain her image in public, and now she wants me to play the villain. While she was worrying about her own registration, her son returned home. Nolan had told me early in the day that he would be home in the afternoon. But I told Nolan that I would be out in the afternoon taking Tessa to her dance class, so, when the door opened, my mother-in-law and I saw a woman arm in arm with Nolan, entering the house very affectionately. Nolan seemed surprised to see someone in the living room. He quickly pushed the woman away from him, realizing that his action of pushing her away was too obvious. He suspended his hand in midair and then gently supported the woman again. Honey, don't misunderstand, this is Oscar's fiancé. Since she's pregnant, and Oscar knew I was returning to the country, he asked me to bring her along to have the baby here. Accompanying Nolan's explanation was a polite greeting from the woman. Hello, sister-in-law. Nolan had kept his affair very secret, even my mother-in-law didn't know. So, to my mother-in-law, the scene looked like a pregnant woman with ill intentions trying to seduce her beloved eldest son. My mother-in-law did not give the woman a pleasant look, with a stern face. She said that since people had returned to the country, they should go to their respective homes. It's not right for a pregnant woman to follow her son home, even if there's nothing inappropriate. The neighbors' gossip is still a concern. The woman didn't say a word, just stood weakly behind Nolan. Nolan, standing in front of his mother, waved his hand impatiently. Enough. I've flown thousands of miles back home and haven't even had a drink of water yet. Let's talk later. Then he turned to ask me, by the way, honey, didn't you say Tessa was in class? When are you going to pick her up? Oh, right, that reminded me. So I picked up the car keys and left to pick up our daughter. After a while, through the home surveillance, I saw my mother-in-law still nagging. Only when Nolan was sure I had left did he start to lose his temper with his mother. Enough with your crude remarks. Stop being sarcastic towards Sylvia. Valerie stared at her son, incredulous. Her usually dutiful son, how could he speak to her like this for a pregnant outsider? Seeing Valerie about to burst into tears and scold her son for being unfilial, Nolan carefully protected Sylvia. If you don't want your grandson in Rura's belly, go ahead and cry. What? Valerie was still processing the shock, her expression changing multiple times. Nolan helped Sylvia to sit on the sofa and then went to support his mother. Mom, Sylvia isn't Oscar's fiancée. She's actually the mother of your unborn grandson. Mom, you're about to be a grandmother. Valerie was stunned by this sudden joyful news. Ever since I had Tessa, she had been hoping for another grandchild, ideally a boy. Unfortunately, I had no plans for a second child, as I was the main breadwinner of the family, and while she urged for another child, she only did so subtly and never in front of me. Suddenly, with this precious grandson emerging, she was so excited that her hands trembled. Good, good, our family finally has a future, and now I can face your father with pride. Her eyes were tearful, her look at Sylvia was now filled with immense tenderness, a perfect look of a mother-in-law satisfied with her daughter-in-law. In the surveillance, the three of them looked like a harmonious family. Meanwhile, I had arrived at my new home, a safe house with my parents, where I had picked up Tessa from her dance class. Tessa chattered nonstop about the fun incidents from her class today, making my parents laugh heartily. Yes, having experienced the terror of a great downturn in this life, I called my parents from the neighboring province before the downturn happened. As for the reason, sure, Nolan's mom went back to her hometown. Sometimes work keeps me busy, so I need them to come over during the summer to help take care of the kids. My parents didn't hesitate and packed up to come over right away, of course. They were stunned when I brought them to the new house. My mom asked, "When did you change houses?" I didn't even know about it. I simply explained that I hadn't been sleeping well in the old place, and since the housing prices had dropped this year, I took the opportunity to buy a new one to improve our living conditions. Indeed, that was the case. Housing prices had plummeted this year, and I had already planned to buy a new house anyway. I just hadn't discussed this plan with Nolan. And then all these things happened recently. I definitely won't tell Nolan now. I told Nolan that there was an issue at the supermarket that I needed to handle immediately, and I took Tessa with me. As for dinner, he might need to take his mom and his cousin and their spouses out to eat. Nolan seemed hesitant, repeatedly asking me over the phone if I really couldn't make it for dinner. However, from the surveillance, I could see his expression, visibly relieved. I confirmed that I indeed wouldn't be free in the evening, and asked him to take good care of his cousin's husband, and his friend's fiancé. Tomorrow we'll see a drastic drop in temperature. I've checked the home's protection system and our emergency supplies, and we have enough to last until the rescue team arrives. To avoid any issues, I've told my parents to stay indoors starting tonight. I ordered hot pot delivery from a local restaurant and enjoyed it with the air conditioning on. I also kept Nolan's surveillance feed on, watching the drama unfold as I ate. Why was there still a show to watch at home during mealtime? It was somewhat amusing. After Nolan's cousin and her spouse went out for a walk and came back, Valerie suddenly snapped out of her joy of having a new grandchild. She remembered that the relatives she brought to the city had taken her appointment slot for a follow-up doctor's visit. Nolan had already gotten ready to take everyone out for dinner, but suddenly Valerie's face fell, complaining of dizziness and chest tightness, and didn't want to go out. Nolan looked troubled, but his cousin was quick to notice. Since the host didn't want to go out, she considerately suggested that they could cook a pot of sweet potato rice using fresh sweet potatoes she brought from her hometown. As for the vegetables, the cousin mentioned there were some in the fridge, and since Nolan's mom wasn't feeling well, she volunteered to prepare dinner. Despite Valerie's obvious displeasure, Nolan's cousin still managed to prepare a full table of dishes and set everything up for dinner. I glanced at the dining table and, oh well, it looked like the fridge was cleared out. Even the 2 packs of dairy drinks left by Tessa were opened and placed on the dining table. Congratulations to them, their food storage before the extreme cold, 0, none of the family had breakfast. And with the heavy rain outside, it was hard to order takeout. Look. Even the dog knows it's pouring out there, but his urging for me to come home was just so I could bring back food for his family. I agreed. After hanging up the phone, my Tessa was sitting by the window watching the rain, then quietly looking at me. I asked her if she would be sad without her dad. Tessa came over and hugged me. I just want Mom to be with me forever. Then, I had no more reservations. Half an hour later, the temperature suddenly dropped to 15 degrees. This unusual temperature spike was trending online, with everyone discussing it. Just then, the downpour briefly paused, and during this break, cars on the roads were speeding away. Nolan called me again, his tone slightly impatient, asking where I was. I said I was on the road. The rain had been too heavy, and I had waited for a long time. He responded okay, with a tone of complaint, adding that 3 elderly people and a pregnant woman at home were all waiting for me to bring back food. The man on the phone felt like a stranger to me. He wasn't always like this. We once had a loving marriage, harmonious as a well-tuned orchestra. In the middle of the night, when I was thirsty, he would get out of bed to get me a cup of warm water, not wanting me to take an extra step. If I had a small cut on my hand, he would fret over it for half a day, wishing he could do everything for me. But now, I dare not think too deeply. Whether it was a shift in affection or was it all pretense from the start, gathering my thoughts, since it's come to this, there's nothing more to say. I watched Nolan, still lying on the sofa playing video games on the monitor screen. If he had any initiative, he would have gone to the store at the entrance of the residential area by now. Sadly, he pinned all his hopes on me, who was determined not to return to that home. Sylvia seemed hungry too. She picked up the last small bottle of milk drink on the table and finished it in a few gulps. 16. The wind gradually stopped, but the outdoor temperature felt even lower. Looking down, I saw frost on the leaves of the trees in the neighborhood. I turned on all the air conditioners in the house, setting them to the highest temperature, mainly using the electricity while it was still available. In another day, I expected all public power systems would collapse. And then we'd have to switch to the backup power supply. Nolan and the others might have finally realized something was wrong. Everyone in the house looked confused and anxious. Nolan put on thick clothes, and as he walked to the door, he called me. Valerie stopped him. Son, the weather is too abnormal. It's so cold. Why go outside? Vivian and Tessa haven't come back yet. I'm going down to pick them up and buy some food. Valerie grabbed him. Oh, it's so cold outside. Vivian is driving herself. You don't need to go pick her up. On the other hand, Sylvia also held him back. With the weather so abnormal, people are scared. You should stay and keep us company. In the distance, an aunt looked at the family with a disdainful expression. I picked up the phone just in time. Everyone on the other end fell silent. Nolan asked me, "Where are you now?" I tried to sound anxious. "Still on the road. This terrible weather. The roads are icy. I can only drive slowly." Nolan said okay, then drive carefully. Sure, here's the translated text. The phone suddenly cut off. In the surveillance footage, Sylvia grabbed his phone and hung up. "What are you doing?" Nolan looked helplessly at Sylvia. "What else were you going to say? Were you feeling sorry for her? Telling her not to bring buns on her way back? But look. It's freezing outside. It's good enough that she can make it back at all. Stopping to buy stuff on the way is indeed dangerous, Nolan patiently explained, hoping Sylvia would understand. Besides, if you're hungry, I can just go down to the convenience store right now. Isn't that faster? But Sylvia was not having it. Are you saying you're not worried about her? What's there to eat at the convenience store? Instant noodles. Or bread with preservatives. You'd rather your son eat junk food than have her walk a few more steps, right? Sylvia began to sob. Nolan quickly embraced her to comfort her. All right, honey, I won't go down. We'll just wait for the buns. Don't cry. Take care of the baby. Unfortunately, the buns were never to come. There were plenty of large icicles, though. 17. Snow began to drift outside the house. It started with light snow, which gradually turned into heavy, feather-like flakes. Nolan kept calling my phone over and over. Too bad I had turned on airplane mode. He couldn't get through. The expressions of the people inside the house shifted from initial confusion to panic. Nolan's family finally stopped relying on me. I saw Nolan putting on a thick down jacket and snow boots, preparing to go down to the convenience store to buy some food. Before this, Valerie had wanted her cousin-in-law to go down. But under the harsh external conditions, the cousin-in-law, who had lovingly cooked dinner the night before, was nowhere to be found. In the face of disaster, preserving one's own life is the most important. The cousin-in-law said her husband was already coughing and feared that the freezing weather outside would prevent him from returning if he went out. She also complained of dizziness and leg pain herself. Under the circumstances, Valerie, despite her best efforts, couldn't persuade anyone. After much pulling and tugging between the two groups, they decided that Nolan, the younger man, should go down to buy supplies. The wind and snow blew into the stairwell, and the house's door was frozen shut. They struggled for a long time to open it. When the door finally opened, the blizzard rushed in, and the few people inside, shivering, pushed Nolan out and quickly shut the door. The people in the surveillance footage sat obediently on the sofa, waiting for Nolan to return with food. Meanwhile, Valerie covered her growling stomach while her aunt gave her a contemptuous look. Outside was a blizzard. Inside were several hungry people. Suddenly, the aroma of barbecued meat filled the air. It turned out that Tessa was holding a piece of fresh, green lettuce wrapped around a golden, crispy piece of barbecued meat, which she brought to my lips. I took a bite. The meat was crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, the oil and meat flavors blending perfectly with the peppery hot sauce and garlic slices, creating a burst of happiness in my mouth, with the fresh lettuce providing a refreshing finish. Tessa proudly told me, "Mom, Grandma cooked the meat, but I wrapped it in the lettuce for you." Her face beamed with pride and cuteness, melting my heart. I finished off the small dish of lettuce-wrapped barbecue that Tessa brought over, praising her for her excellent job. Tessa hopped off to the kitchen to get more from my mom. Outside was a world of ice and snow. Inside was warmth and barbecue. On my phone, I watched as the despicable family went hungry. I felt delighted. 18. Finally, there was movement again in the surveillance footage. A hard, banging knock came from outside. Valerie hurried to open the door. Everyone inside stood up, staring at the door with anticipation. But the aunt was the first to sit down, disappointed, because Nolan, with empty hands, hadn't brought anything back. Not only that, the recent storm followed by an unusual drop in temperature prompted the property management to shut down several elevators in our building early to prevent accidents due to extreme weather. As a result, Nolan had to use the stairs to go up and down. We live on the 23rd floor. Seeing Nolan covered in slush and mud, I guessed he must have slipped a few times while climbing the stairs. Nolan mentioned that he had checked several convenience stores in the neighborhood, but they were all closed. With her stomach growling, Valerie finally said something nice about me. If only Vivian were here. Indeed, over the years, she and her mother have gotten used to not having to lift a finger. Nolan often works outside, and even when he is home, he doesn't concern himself with household matters. As for me, I take care of not only our little home, but also Nolan's family home, ensuring everything they need is accounted for. If his mother and daughter had ever bought a pack of salt, a bottle of water, paid a property fee, or a parking fee, or had frequent interactions with the convenience store owner or property management, they wouldn't need to make a wasted trip downstairs. A phone call is all it takes to know a lot of information. Even in my Instagram, there was a message sent 3 hours ago from the lady at the convenience store downstairs, due to extreme weather. Convenience store will close in 1 hour, reopening time to be determined. Neighbors who need to pick up packages or shop, please hurry and avoid a wasted trip. Valerie's relatives, the couple she brought with her, were not good people. After seeing Nolan return empty-handed, the aunt completely dropped her facade. She cursed out loud, blaming Valerie for bringing her to the city to die. Back in the countryside, at least they had vegetables in the cellar and grain in the barn. Over the years, Because of me and Nolan, Valerie was treated with high regard wherever she went in the village. She was not used to hearing such words. Moreover, the ones cursing her were the same poor relatives from the countryside who had been obsequiously flattering just a day before. Me, a curse, who kindly brought your husband to the city for treatment, who gave up her own appointment for a checkup to let your old man have it. Emma, you should speak with some conscience, Pa. The aunt stopped pretending, her rural elder's combativeness at full force. Valerie, stop your pretense. Everyone in the village knows your son married well, his wife is rich, and your family is living the high life. At this, Nolan's face changed. Don't you see what you are? We've been relatives for decades. Don't you know your own worth? Every time you return to the village, you strut around, looking down on everyone. Think about it. Back when your family was so poor that no one would even bother with you, you couldn't even sell yourself. Seeing the aunt's insults getting dirtier, I quickly muted the surveillance. Goodness, there's also Tessa at home. These are not things for her to hear, but in the blink of an eye, when I looked back at the monitor, they had started to push and shove each other. The aunt and her husband were cursing, and so was Valerie. But Valerie, having lived a pampered life these years, was no match for the aunt and her husband. So now, with Nolan still recovering from climbing stairs, and Sylvia heavily pregnant and indifferent, only Valerie was left fighting a losing battle against the two. Snap, I heard a noise from somewhere, and at the same time, the monitor showed it was offline. The power went out, the temperature outside was too low, damaging some electrical facilities. Fortunately, our house was well insulated, so even now with the power outage, the indoor temperature had not dropped much. 2 days have passed. I can only imagine how tough it has been for Nolan and his family. I'm so bored, but I think life must be hard for them. After all, they have no electricity, no food, and it's cold. It's because of the renovations at home. I had mentioned installing a good insulation system, but I only ended up properly renovating my safe house. As for the old house, I did some minor, almost unnecessary repairs, just to appease Nolan and his mother. While the communication system was still functioning, I sent Nolan a video. It was a video of a bubbling lamb spine hot pot, a pot full of meat, with the broth bubbling and steam rolling out. It was undoubtedly the best comfort in this freezing weather. As soon as I sent the video, Nolan immediately called me. Where are you, honey? Why couldn't I reach your phone earlier? Did you just start cooking the hot pot? Where are you? I'll come to you, Nolan asked me in a rush. It seemed he was really starving. What did you say? The signal is bad. After showing off the lamb spine hot pot, I promptly hung up the call. Then, I ignored the repeated calls from Nolan and enjoyed my meal. What I didn't expect was that besides Nolan, Valerie also kept sending me messages. It was quite funny because during the time it took me to finish my meal, she went from initially demanding to know where I was and accusing me of being selfish and indifferent to her and her son's plight, to later softening her tone and even kindly asking if I was cold. My mother-in-law's change of face was really amusing. I didn't mind the entertainment. Under Valerie's relentless barrage of messages, I only replied once, Mom, why do you think I wouldn't come back? Don't you know? I left her to figure out the reason. I watched as Valerie typed back and forth, deleting and apologizing. She admitted she shouldn't have brought relatives from the countryside home without my consent. She also shouldn't have made decisions on her own about asking me to pull strings for medical help for relatives. So look, she was aware of her overstepping behavior. Valerie sent me many messages in a row. Even Nolan was apologizing on behalf of his mother, saying these years had indeed been hard on me, but I didn't reply at all. Eventually, they became desperate. Valerie called me. Vivian, I've said all I could, and you haven't replied at all. What's your attitude? Even if you don't care about me, your mother-in-law, what about Nolan? Nolan is your husband after all. You may not care about me, but you should care about your husband, right? Where exactly are you? Hurry up and bring us some food, or at least tell us your location so we can come find you. Clearly, even at this point, Valerie hadn't grasped the situation nor understood her position. Mom, I've never blamed you, but think about it. What could be the reason that a woman would rather stay outside with her child in the snow than return to that home? You knew? Valerie's mouth ran loose, and with just one comment from me, she felt guilty on behalf of her son. Vivian, it's not what you think. No need to explain. I decisively cut her off. Mom, tell Nolan I want a satisfactory explanation. If he provides one, I can forgive and forget, and bring you and Nolan over here. After all, I have enough supplies, food, and heating to support a family of 4. Okay, Valerie continuously promised, saying she would definitely have Nolan give me a satisfactory explanation. Despite preparing myself mentally, I was still shocked by the photo Nolan sent. I never expected him to be so heartless. In the photo, Sylvia, heavily pregnant, lay straight on the icy floor, Her eyes wide open in anger, blood, bright red, flowed profusely from the back of her head, staining a large area of the floor. The blood on the floor even began to freeze into ice due to the coldness of the room. My wife, she seduced me, she took advantage when I was drunk. I thought she was you. I was far away in a foreign land at the time, missing you every day. From the mobile phone, Nolan's voice messages played one after another. My parents also saw that photo. They were utterly shocked. If it hadn't been for such a desperate situation, we would never have imagined Nolan could be such a person. After all, in my parents' eyes, Nolan was hardworking, filially dutiful, and responsible. Even his decision to go abroad to a developed country was to earn more money for Tessa, to provide her with a better material life. That's why my parents felt confident in trusting me to Nolan. But who could have known, who could have guessed? It turns out that until pushed to the limit, human nature can hide behind a facade. Even my parents, who had decades of social experience, were mistaken. My parents and I felt a chill of fear. I think, if it weren't for that nightmare, even without this harsh winter ordeal, I would eventually have been completely manipulated by Nolan. Leaving with nothing might have even been the best outcome. Wealthy and widowed, that's what he wanted. 2 days later, I finally lost contact with Nolan. I remember that day. Nolan desperately called me on the last 1% of his phone battery. On the other end of the phone, he begged me like a lost dog to forgive him, to save him, but the one who responded wasn't me. Instead, it was the sound of someone breaking into his place. Before his phone battery died, I simply stated, "Nolan, haven't you realized? I never intended to save you from the start." He didn't even have time to curse or wail. Instead, there was the sound of someone smashing him with clubs. I could only hear the dull thuds of the clubs hitting flesh, and Nolan's cries like a stray dog being cornered and beaten in a dead-end alley. And in the faint background, there was Valerie, starving and barely alive, begging those people on her knees. The heavy snow covered everything. I counted the days. Finally, on the 53rd day after the temperature plummeted, the National Rescue Team entered our city. They came to save those who had struggled to survive up to this point. Not many were left. A prolonged calamity had overturned the order that humanity had established over thousands of years. The future living environment was still uncertain, but the emergency ARC system established by the state was a small-scale simulated ecosystem that allowed us to temporarily resume normal life. However, before entering the ARC, a human judgment system that had been established at some unknown time would assess each individual. Meanwhile, the big screens outside the Ark continuously displayed the acts of good and evil by humanity during the days of the calamity. It was then that I saw Nolan and his family again, or rather, I saw their images. On the day the temperature plummeted, Nolan had a falling out with his aunt, leading to a heated argument. On the second day of the cold snap, Nolan, Sylvia, and Valerie plotted to lock his aunt and her husband in a dark, cramped storage room, sealing all the cracks. His aunt and her husband suffocated to death. On the fourth day of the severe cold, the three of them could no longer bear the hunger. Upon opening the storage room and facing the two corpses, a thought crossed my mind. It was also at this time that Nolan received the food video I sent him. He saw me as his last lifeline, but in reality, when I demanded an explanation from him, his initial plan was to usurp my place and then eliminate me, his so-called lifeline. Sylvia had been whispering in his ear, suggesting that my delay in contacting him was a deliberate move to make him suffer. It wasn't hard to guess Sylvia's intentions. She feared that Nolan would take his mother to seek refuge with me, leaving her behind to face death alone. Sylvia's insinuations were quite effective, especially since she was pregnant and the baby's gender had been confirmed, which made Nolan lean towards her side. "We'll play along and trick her into forgiving me," he said. "When we really confront her, I won't make it easy for her. She's just a woman with a child. Ultimately, she'll be at my mercy. When the time comes, I'll bring you and our son to live with her, and the four of us will live well together." However, plans often don't keep up with changes. Nolan's mother was even more eager than Nolan to give me a satisfactory explanation. She intentionally distracted Nolan and then struck Sylvia hard from behind. Valerie explained to Nolan, "If you are planning to deal with Vivian anyway, why not take care of this woman at the same time? We don't know how much food supply Vivian has, or how long it will last. Son, listen to your mother. A pregnant woman has a big appetite. She won't be of any help and is just a burden. Instead of risking deceiving Vivian, it's better to genuinely deal with this and make Vivian trust us. You're still young, my son. There will be other grandchildren, but right now, it's about us surviving this together." Thus, came the bloody photo Nolan sent to me. It must be said, Nolan was always his mother's favorite son, watching his mother kill his mistress and their unborn child, but he never expected that he would ultimately die due to his mother's karma. I remember mentioning how Valerie loved to post videos online. This time, although there were no more supplies at home to show off, she had filmed plenty of videos before. She had showcased our kitchen and storage room from every angle, every time I filled our home. She would share videos online, showing off how well supplied her home was. She even filmed the large supermarket I owned. She also boasted about how expensive her house was, posting videos with the location tagged and even including the price of the house. What could I do, since she loved to show off, especially when everyone was confined at home due to the blizzard? Of course, I promoted her videos online to increase their reach. So, in these chaotic times, while some sought food, others saw an opportunity to loot wealth. People with ulterior motives simultaneously set their sights on this address. The terrifying scenes from a nightmare played out, but unlike the nightmare, those who came found nothing, became angrier, more violent. All their violent emotions were fully unleashed on Nolan and his mother. The glass ashtray that Valerie had thrown at Sylvia was picked up by these people and used on her. From head to toe, the shattered ashtray was smashed onto them. Blurring flesh and blood, Nolan was first crippled by the attackers, then his belly was cut open, and someone reached inside to warm their hands. The scene was too gory, I couldn't bear to watch. I only remember, as they tortured the mother and son, they furiously cursed, "It's all because you fucking posted those videos, made me come all this way in the snowstorm, and for what? Nothing, I swear. We've never tortured anyone like this before, but you made us come here for nothing." At that moment, Nolan understood the sudden disaster that had struck. I remember telling him countless times before, urging him to remind his mother. I said not to flaunt wealth. I mentioned there were children at home. I said the only man of the house was far abroad. I advised to be cautious and prudent. I said not to expose all our lives on a public social platform. Every time, he just laughed it off, saying his mother was just a rural old lady with this one hobby. I thought he was truly filial. But until his death, I saw the intense hatred in his eyes. He was wailing, enduring great torment, even under severe pain. He still cursed his mother's entire family. Oh, he wasn't that filial after all. As I held Tessa, as we walked towards the Ark with my parents, others were also heading in the same direction. Silence prevailed among us all. But I knew that those who had managed to survive this far into the disaster were no ordinary people. Still waters run deep. Perhaps even after entering the Ark, challenges would still await us.